Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Just scares.
Good evening, councilors. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Industrial Community Development. Members are myself as chair, Councilor Daigle. Councilor Daigle, you have the floor for 1 second, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I am going to recuse myself from this and step out of the room.
Thank you, Councilor Daigle.
Thank you.
Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Rossignol, and I'd like to have Councilor Peach sit in for Councilor Daigle, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We have a proposed zoning amendment. I'd like to have Community Development Director, Mr. Bellavance, come up and speak, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Bellavance. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Peabody. Before you, we have the proposed zoning amendment to the Mill Overlay District. The information was provided to you back, I believe, we met in January, and there was some discussion in regards to the overlay and some good constructive criticism that we took back and reviewed the document and made some amendments or edits to that. And so before you this evening is those changes from the original amendment proposal. So what I'd like to do is discuss those with the subcommittee this evening and explain what the changes were that we made.
If you would, Mr. Bellavance, feel free. Thank you.
So the...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Bellavance. Could we...
Motion to receive item 8F.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. You read my mind. Thank you. That's the motion by Councilor Rossignol. All in favor? Any opposed? That's a vote. Mr. Bellavance, please.
Okay, thank you. At the previous subcommittee meeting, some of the comments and suggestions that were made in regards to this change were brought forward. We looked at the zoning and looked at amending those. So the first one was in reference to the, I guess the most important one was the planning board and whether the planning board had site plan authority over this. And we looked at that and reviewed. What happened was originally when we drafted this, it was meant for existing structures. It wasn't really meant for new buildings, although new buildings could have been built within the district. We didn't, that wasn't our focus. So we went back and reviewed. The language really only addressed existing buildings. So when we basically moved that reference out to the planning board, it was because we had existing buildings. We were looking at uses within those existing buildings, and any minor modification we were willing to review through our office in the building department office. As we grew this district and realized we wanted to put language in regards to new structures, that sort of changed how we laid out the new amendment. So basically what we did was we put in language that referenced what type of design what kind of layouts and those types of things that we were looking to move forward. And that is, if you look onto the document, that's section 6.15.4 of the amendment, and it's site and design criteria for uses in existing. Point 5, building and design criteria for new buildings or buildings with exterior renovations. So we added that section because we wanted it to be clear if anyone was going to propose a new building or an addition, that we wanted them to follow certain guidelines in regards to how we wanted the Middle District to look. So we added that entire section in reference to that. And so hopefully that's more clear in regards to new construction. The other part that I made reference to, 6.15.4, we changed that as well. So that was site and design criteria for uses in existing buildings. We left the language in there in regards to the community development and building department reviewing because we thought if they're going to change, if they're going to use existing buildings, we thought it would be unnecessary for them to go through the whole site plan process. So we thought that's something that was originally in there that we thought worked. We changed that in regards to new buildings. We wanted the planning board to not take away their authority and have them keep that in regards to new structures. So the section that we did that in regards to was section 6.152, which talks about applicability in relationship to underlying zoning. So that language says that the mill overlay is an overlay district superimposed on the underlying zoning district. Within the mill overlay district, the regulations for dimensions and all other provisions of the zoning ordinance governing the underlying zoning districts shall remain in full force. So because we called it out for uses in existing buildings and referenced that would go to community development and building, we left the other one with new buildings as would need necessary to be compliant with the existing site plan review. So any new structures would, anything which is referenced as site plan review over 1,000 square feet, changes parking, is a drive-through, is a drive-in, is wireless, is residential more than 3 units, 3 or more, would have to go to site plan review as normal process as they would. And that would also require them to go through the construction review process and the whole normal steps in regards to site plan review. So as we reviewed that and realized we kind of were looking at existing, we want to make that change so that the planning board, which they had also commented about in regards to being involved, we wanted to put that back in to make sure that the planning board still had their process in place. The other change that we did, there was a comment in regards to waivers. We had section, it was 6.15.7 waivers. We took that entire section out. So there was reference to the zoning board and whether we had the right to make any waivers or so forth. It was a little bit confusing, so we decided to take that section out altogether. So again, that would remain in the hands of the zoning board in regards to no questions asked. Whatever else is in the zoning would also apply. I think the last change that we had done, I think those 3 were the main changes that we had modified in regards to the meeting last time, but I'm happy to answer any other questions in regards to this amendment before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Any questions of Mr. Bellavance? Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first off, I would like to thank Mr. Bellavance for the work on this. As he pointed out, it was, I believe he said constructive criticism. I think that's right to an extent, but I think it's been a constructive process. I know Councilor Peach kind of highlighted that the last time, that this is the way it should work, and I am very pleased that you onboarded a lot of the feedback from several councilors, including myself. I won't rehash those changes that you outlined. I think each of them made sense for the reasons you stated, except I'm a little, I wish, if there's another iteration of this, I'd like it to be a little more clear with respect to the site plan review and in construction review. I think we have similar language or some language in the residential overlay, something like for the avoidance of doubt type of thing, that those apply, just so that it's not subject to any interpretation. I mean, I see how you get there, kind of backing into it from the relationship to the underlying zoning thing, but it's not. I'd like to see it explicitly stated, so that there's a clear distinction between 6.15.4 and 6.15.5 as to where who makes the determination on the design criteria. So I will let you respond to that comment, Mr. Bellavance.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Mr. Bellavance, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, actually, we changed that, working with Elizabeth Lashway, the Assistant City Solicitor. We changed that language a few different times, what we thought would be the most succinct. That's the one that we have that you received this evening. We did take out a reference from the last time that I had sent it, which was in regards to uses. So we specifically said, all dimensional requirements within that would be required. I think one way of handling it is that we could add a sentence at the end of 6.152 where it references, it says any requirements of site plan review other than listed under section 6.1.4 would be subject to site plan review. I mean, that's one way that we could state that. So that would be in that section where applicability is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Bellavance, I think that makes sense. I think if you include it in that section and you make specific reference to the 6.155, then it's clear. It's clear that will be applicable. And it's clear to the future councilors. I mean, we're the ones sometimes they get left with interpreting what the intent was on these things, and it's nice when you see, hey, this was supposed to have gone through site plan review, and we don't, we either have that or we don't have that. There's a reference to that, like I said, in the residential overlay. It's not in this current draft, so if you could add that, I think that would be great. Another change that you made, it's a pretty significant change actually that you made that you didn't mention. I had questioned I thought the way demolition was in there as a use was awkward, and you added this section 6.15.6 historic relationship. I think that makes a ton of sense the way that's been laid out in there. It deals with the issue of demolition. It deals with who is going to make the determination as to what's historically significant and what's not. It lays out pretty clear percentages in terms of what can change and what can't. So I thank you for taking out that word demolition in the use thing where it kind of said nothing, and really kind of adding some meaningful text here that I think will serve us well. We also, at the last meeting, myself and at least one other councilor were questioning the mill building definition. That hasn't changed. You've got it in as a mill building is defined as a building constructed prior to 1940, which at one time was used for manufacturing or industry. I continue to believe that that's too vague. I used the example at the January 26th meeting that, you could have a metal building built prior to 1940 that's a small metal building, and somebody could try to argue that based on this definition, it's a mill. And And if you have three of them, it's, it could apply, we could apply this to it. And it kind of grows from there, because then it's what's adjacent to that also potentially gets included. So I guess I'm not so concerned about it as it relates to where we want to apply this initially. I think it's pretty clear in Ward 3 where this would be, and I think we all look at those buildings and say, yeah, those are mill buildings. But if this gets applied somewhere else in the city, which could happen, I think we need a better definition of mill, and I think it needs some attributes that would include something relative to the size of the building. You've got something relative to the age and use of the building, but also some of the architectural characteristics of the building. I think the last time we talked about, brick or whatever. What comes to mind for people when they think of a New England mill building? And I don't have the language for you, but I trust that you would be able to come up with something that can be tighter than what we have here. So I'll let you comment on that.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Mr. Bellavance, please.
Yes, thank you. That was another area that we had modified a few different times in trying to make a recommendation in regards to what that district and how that's defined. Certainly, as you said, you can look at the property that we're talking about and kind of say, yeah, that's a mill district. And maybe there are some characteristics in regards to that where everybody sees that and says that's a mill district, we kind of take those feelings and turn those into language in regards to that, whether it's brick, whether it's height, something like that, like you said, in size. That would define it more. I'd have to, originally this was meant for two areas. It was meant for 119 Rear Foster and then Pulaski Street. I'd have to look at other areas throughout the city to see would they also be defined under that or not. But it's something that those were the two original districts that we had looked at it as a comparison. But certainly we'd have to look at some of the other areas that contained older buildings that were possibly used for manufacturing and see if whether they would fall into that or not fall under that. But certainly the intention was for Pulaski Street and then possibly in the future, 119 Rear Foster, but we were really focusing on that one. So it's something we can certainly look at.
Thank you, Mr. Belvance. And, that's not going to be 100% within our span of control going forward, right? We could have somebody come in and request a zoning change. They say, we want to be included, and we've already had that here. So it's great from a standpoint of saying, okay, these are the areas we've envisioned, although I don't think it's ever been said out loud at a public meeting that 119R was potentially part of this, but I'm glad you have, because I figured that was probably coming. But it's not going to be necessarily something that the city has full control over. That we could have a property owner or something come forward that owns some of this and say, hey, we think this is a mill under your definition, and at that point we'd be sorry if we hadn't tightened it up. So I appreciate your willingness to go back and look at that a little more closely.
I think one other thing just to add to that is that with the recent news in regards to Rousselot, that's something that we never thought of it in the past, that's something they may look at and say, oh, do we fall into that as well? So it's something that we definitely would want to tighten up.
Thank you. I agree. I agree on both fronts with your specific concern about Rousselot property, as well as acknowledging that it could be an issue elsewhere. So I'm sorry, if you could just bear with me. I'm looking through my notes from, you've addressed the vast majority of the other points that were raised. Yeah, these are kind of a, I guess I would defer to kind of what the will of the committee and the rest of the council is with respect to leaving the authority to review all the design criteria for the modifications to the building commissioner's office and community development. I could go both ways on that one. In some ways, I feel like the more eyes we have on these things, the better. But I also understand the argument of trying to make the process less cumbersome. And so I would be interested to hear what other councils might have to say on that. I guess as we look at the list in 6.15.5, it's unclear to me when I read that if everything in 6.15.4 also applies, because I think if that's not the case, then 6.15.5 might be incomplete. And I'll give you an example. There's nothing in 6.15.5 about signs. So, where we have a specific mention of signs and what the design criteria should be in 6.15.4, we've left that out in 6.15.5. So if we were to say that everything in 6.15.4 also applies to 6.15.5 plus these additional things, then I'd say, okay, that makes more sense to me. I don't want the 6.15.5 list to be missing items. It should be all inclusive. Thoughts on that?
Mr. Bellavance, please.
I think one way to look at that is that we could do a specific section that references the entire district, what would be required, or and then as you go forward through the amendment, you'd see, okay, what else applies to existing uses, and then what else would apply to new construction. So it would be here's everything, and then as these different categories, these are what would apply to those categories. So it's one way to do that.
That makes sense to me, Mr. Bellavance. And I think it would be much easier to follow that way as well. Here's the list that applies to everyone. Here's the stuff that only applies to modifications. Here's the list that applies to new. I think that would be a clear way to lay it out. So I'd agree with that approach. And this is just a very minor thing on the existing renovations thing. I think that should say and/or facade improvements, just because the facade thing is so heavily referenced in zoning. So I don't want it to be unclear that a facade improvement wouldn't require compliance with these design criteria. We've seen some buildings where they've done some not great things with the facades on the outside, at least for my taste. And I don't want that to get missed. So that would be a request I would make there as well, just to make sure that's clear. And I think, Mr. Chairman, other than that, I would yield to other councilors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Bellavance.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Rossignol, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Bellavance. I guess I'm a little confused, or I just have the original draft was for mill buildings. It was to take existing properties, existing buildings that, and to Councilor McGinn's point, what that exactly is, I know we've already kind of mentioned that a bunch of times in other meetings, but taking that mill building and then repurposing, reusing it. So when you're talking about section 6.15.5, you're talking about a new building adjacent to those properties. and you had mentioned it a couple of minutes ago in your remarks regarding Rousselot. So if you take that as an example of where somebody may potentially look at that building as a mill building, and now you look at adjacent properties to that, that could be expansive. The original intent of this overlay district was to repurpose mill buildings, specific structures in a specific footprint, repurpose them, make them better for the community. I honestly think the whole section of 6.15.5 really kind of opens us up to a slippery slope if you're looking at the potential of this being expansive to other mill properties throughout the city, when you're saying that we can now do that to an adjacent property or something that's attached to it. There's no end to it if you really think about it. I have a mill building here, but I also own this property, so let me build a brand new building here. Well, I also bought the one next to it, so let me do the same thing. So I'll just leave that for everybody to just think about, because that really kind of makes me a little bit nervous. The other thing, and I mentioned this last meeting, the one structure that you have in the mill overlay district specific, I still have a question about that building being included, and that's the one, and this is so small I can't read the exact parcel number, but the bottom right where it's not on Pulaski Rear Street, that's directly across from residents and directly next to residents. I raised this point last time that I don't necessarily think that that building in particular should be included in the mill district. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm just going to leave that up to the committee as a whole. That's just my personal opinion, because yes, it could be a desirable mixed use, but it also could be something that the neighbor right next door may not want. So I just, again, just food for thought for the committee. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Are there any other councilors who would like to speak? Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to comment on some of the things that have been said tonight, I appreciate Councilor McGinn's thoroughness, and I think this document has really expanded. It's gotten longer, but it's also gotten a lot more specific. So I think we're almost there, Kurt. We're almost there. To Councilor Rossignol's point about the condo industrial building that is on Pulaski Street, which abuts the mill building. I understand the concern now with Rousselot announcing that they're closing, and would they fit this definition? I don't know. The idea for like why abutting properties came into this is there are vacant lots here that are developable, and are they going to be 40B projects, or are they going to be more industrial use that the neighbors don't want on the front of Pulaski Street? Because the largest parcel here that we're talking about that's completely vacant is on Pulaski Street. It's not in this industrial park. And that was recently purchased, and in an effort to try to avoid any heavy industrial truck use being added to Pulaski Street, this was kind of the thought behind it. And the reason that the property on the other side of the 58 Mills buildings was also included in this was an avoidance of spot zoning, to include abutting properties, and then to start kind of with that street front of Pulaski Street. Currently, I don't know of any complaints of the uses that are in that condoed building, and I know that the condo association has rules as to what's allowed and what's not. They have their own kind of controls that way, but I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it that some retail uses might cause more disruption than the current industrial uses, but there could be other industrial uses that would cause a lot more disruption than the existing ones and more than retail. So I think we're in this situation, we're dealing with a really old industrial part of the city that's smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood. And this really is, speaking with the neighbors, a step in the right direction. So I think right now, we're happy with, what's in those condoed buildings, but in an effort to avoid any accusation of spot zoning, that was included in the proposal. So just to address why, just so people at home know as well why that was included. And I've spoken with other property owners within the industrial park, some that would in the future like to be included, but I have explained, this process really is like a slow go, change things slowly, see how it goes, see how it works for the neighborhood, because it is a new overlay development. And so far it's been great. The response of Mills 58 has been fantastic. And I think the big effort for 68 Pulaski Street is just to not have that, we all know the bus lots, not to have that be a disruption to the neighborhood in the future once that gets clear cut again. So I just wanted to address those couple things, but I think we're almost there, Kurt, and maybe next time. Thank you.
Councilor Peach, Councilor Turco, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on the committee, so if there's anybody that, if you'd like to defer to...
I'm sorry, Councilor Turco. Councilor Rossignol, back to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, actually, through you, I just want to thank Councilor Peach for the rationale for that building, so I do appreciate that. And I also understand the rationale for the vacant lot across the street. My fear, though, is it'll save us in one area of town and not necessarily in another. So as far as the brand new construction. So and I agree with you, I think having this incorporated as a new, the 6.15.5 will definitely help us on Pulaski Street. My fear is moving forward, if other mill areas looked to this as their Bible, it could be pretty expansive in other sections of town. So I just want that to be noted for the record. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Councilor Peach, you're all set? Okay, thank you. Councilor Turco, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I share Councilor Rossignol and Councilor McGinn's concern with the abutting parcels, and I completely agree with Councilor Peach. It works perfectly where she is in her ward. But, for an example, and I know I use this example a lot because I live there and I know it well, but you have 143 Linfield Street that we may consider as a mill overlay district at some point, but the abutting parcel is the Stall Building, which abuts Summit Street and the Summit Street Industrial Park, which abuts Guarisi and Sons. So is our intent to allow that mill building to expand all the way from Summit to Linfield? There's unintended consequences to allowing the abutting parcels. I'm not sure why there was discussion way back when we did the residential overlay of allowing us to add parcels as needed to it. So I'm not sure why we need that and abutting parcels when we can, through a vote of the City Council, add parcels that aren't detrimental to the neighborhood. Some wording to that effect. The abutting parcels things, it's wide open for issues. In other districts, it works very well on Pulaski. So I just wanted to express that. And finally, the definition, I sympathize, I empathize with you. I have looked high and low through every mill overlay district in Massachusetts for a stringent definition. I can't find one that better defines it, so I understand how difficult this is. But, again, the only example I can use is something we just dealt with in the industrial park with trucking terminals and storage warehouse. The definitions are so close. I see it one way, another council may see it another way, and the mayor may see it a different way. So I think this definition really needs to be tightened up so that we know exactly what a mill building is when we look at it. Again, I wish I had a suggestion for you. I wanted to come here with one, so it's kind of in your lap to find it. But I would appreciate if there's some better definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Mr. Bellavance, any response, or are you all set?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned to Councilor McGinn before the meeting, that in previous jobs, towns, we go through a lot of meetings to get to something that everybody's happy with. And that goes, 10, 12 meetings, and then we go to town meeting, and people still go, I never heard about this. So this process is exactly what I hope for, to get everybody's feedback. I think under the section 6.15 purpose, where we define that's something we'll definitely take a look at in response to everybody's concerns here. We also can take a look at in how we define existing uses versus new structures as well, and take a look at that. So there are a few notes that I have here that I'm happy to take a look at and try to put something together that everybody feels confident about passing.
Thank you, Mr. Bellavance. Councilor Turco, any final comment there?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor McGinn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you coming back to me on this. As I was hearing the concerns about the adjacent properties, and everybody kind of describing how well it would work on Pulaski Street, it does kind of work there because it's in the middle of the zone, and all the adjacent properties are in that same zoning district. So, as I'm hearing some of my fellow councilors think this through, what if an adjacent property is not in, what if it's in a residential zoning district? Do they now automatically fall into the overlay? So I think at least that point we need to make clear that it's got to be an adjacent, on the assumption we're going to stick with this adjacent property or adjacent parcel logic, that it's got to be an adjacent parcel within the same zoning district, so that we don't, again, have these, I think as Councilor Turco said, unintended consequences. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Peach, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just threw you to Mr. Bellavance. Would you be able to, the next time you come back with all these revisions, provide us with some of the parcels throughout the city that maybe we're not thinking of? There's the obvious ones. I know the one on Linfield Street, I believe that's only one mill building, though, so that wouldn't, there's 3 separate buildings back there. But if we can identify where these parcels are, and then maybe we can have a visual of saying, if adopted as written, how will this affect other places in the city? I selfishly represent Ward 3, so I'm trying to do what's best for my ward, but I do appreciate, and I don't want to, cause mass development throughout the city, though I think this type of development is very welcoming. But if you could provide us with some examples, maybe there are ones we're not thinking of, but maybe looking at those. I think that's a great suggestion, Councilor McGinn, to define, the abutting parcel will need to be in the same underlying zone. I think that does limit it somewhat. So if you could, Mr. Bellavance, bring some suggestions of areas you think this would be applicable as written, then we can discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's nothing else on the committee, I would make a recommendation that we keep this in committee.
That's what I was hoping you'd come up with. Thank you for the dialogue, councilors. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Bellavance. And you heard Councilor McGinn with a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. You heard the motion by Councilor McGinn. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Peabody City Council Finance Committee meeting. Present for the committee this evening, Councilors Gamache, Gould, Manning Martin, Turco, and myself, Council McGinn, as chair. Also present this evening are all other councilors, I believe, with the exception of Councilor Melville, who's not able to be with us this evening. We have several items on the agenda tonight. First item, statement of interest, Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to you. Good evening, councilors. Hope everybody's doing well. I think all of you are familiar with this MSBA process. Every year we put forward our statement of interest requests. Just a couple quick things I wanted to mention. As you know, there are two different programs that we could put in requests to the Mass School Building Authority to partner with them. The first is the core program, which is for major renovations and new school buildings. And then there's also the accelerated repair program, which is typically for roof projects, windows, boilers, things of that nature. Unfortunately, just because of the economic climate right now and the escalating costs, they have put a hold on all accelerated repair programs. So they're not accepting application for any accelerated repair program, which makes things very difficult for cities and towns. So we're not putting forward any of those requests at the time. We've been very fortunate over the years to have been able to do a number of projects at the elementary schools in particular to do necessary work, but that has been put on hold here for at least the foreseeable future. The core program is accepting applications. And I'm here today to present on behalf of the school committee, and Mrs. Dunn is here representing the school committee, but I know everybody, it was a unanimous vote as well from great support from Dr. Vidal and his team to put forward the request to approve the application to submit to the MSBA for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School new school or major renovation. I think all of you know the importance of this project and the real hope that we can partner with the MSBA and begin this process. I have reason for optimism, but I've been optimistic in the past, and we haven't been invited in yet. But I do have reason to be optimistic here with this submittal. So wanted to ask for your support. Certainly I can answer any questions about the high school, about the process, and Mrs. Dunn knows it better than I do, and she'd be available to answer any questions as well. The Welch School project is winding down. We're hoping that'll be completed within this next year. We expect it to be. That's going very well. And then that would open up opportunities, I think, in order to have this application taken a serious look at. I've learned that they're very reluctant to partner on two or more multiple core program projects, but I do believe we are getting to the point where our time is coming. So I think, but it's certainly available to answer any questions and get into more detail if need be. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions from the committee? Questions from other councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Gamache.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming before us tonight and explaining the processes and the unfortunate situation that we're in as far as core projects. But if there's no, I just move this as a vote of progress from the mayor. So move.
Councilor Gamache, we need to
Approve it, accept it.
We actually need. There's very specific language, and I know your desire to. I know your penchant for brevity,
I'll
but
read well, you know me.
I know you, and so you need to.
Do I have to do Ms. Dunn's?
You need to insert. You need to. You start at resolved. And
Resolved.
Then,
okay.
And then anywhere where there's a reference to the school committee, you change that to the city council. And
yeah.
anywhere there's a reference to a date, you need to change that
Okay.
to today's date.
What's today? I'm retired. Okay, let's try it. I had to ask what day it was. I don't, being retired, I don't know what's... Okay, resolved. Having convened in an open meeting on March 23rd, 2023, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Peabody City Council of the City of Peabody, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts Building Authority the statement of interest form dated on or before April 14th, 2023 for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School located at 485 Lowell Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which the application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. The MSBA priority category selected are MSBA priority number 3, prevention of loss of accreditation. The NEASC, New England Association of Schools and Colleges Commission on Public Schools, voted to place Peabody Veterans Memorial High School as on warning status for the standards of instruction and community resources for learning. The NEASC accreditation report of March 2020 cited the lack of facilities sufficient to implement the curriculum, including co-curricular programs and other learning opportunities, programs in service, inadequate HVAC and electrical systems, insufficient bathrooms, broken or non-functioning lighting in the classrooms, hallways, and parking lots, unsafe water quality, limited handicap access, inadequate security, including insufficient passage locking systems, leaking roofs, and out-of-date classrooms, studios, and labs. MSBA priority number 7, replacement and renovation of or addition to an obsolete building in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. The educational deficits of the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School are articulated in the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School SOI and include the need for much-needed upgrades to classrooms, science areas, career vocational technical education classrooms, meeting rooms, counseling offices, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems, energy efficiencies, building envelope, disability accessibility, and security recommendations. And the the Peabody City Council hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance of the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Councilor Gamache. On the motion? Seeing none, on the motion, Mr. Mayor, I believe this is the second year that Priority 3 has been included. Is that accurate?
Yes, this is the second time.
Could you push the button there? And just for the
This is
for
the
record.
second time that we have noted Priority 3 because of the fact that we're on warning status with NEASC, and the warning status pertains only to the physical building, not to the programs or the education being provided. It's just that they recognize that the building is inadequate, and it just isn't able to provide what the students really need for current times.
Thank you. And one other point of clarification. How many, is this the 5th or 6th time we've put forward a statement of interest for the high school?
I think it's starting to lose track. I want to say it's the 5th?
I think it's the 5th.
It may be the 6th.
We're in the right ballpark.
We're in, yeah,
Okay.
I know it, and I know I say it every year, but Dr. Vidala and I have been working on this every single week since January, when this first came out, when they opened the time period, and we've been going line by line, putting in more and more information to make it a more powerful application. And one of the things that happens is the deficiencies at the building actually help add to the information that goes into that report, because so many of the systems continue to break down. So hopefully MSBA will agree that we do need a new building.
Thank you very much for those 2 points of clarification. The motion's on the floor. Roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould,
Yes.
Gamache, McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, could I just add something very briefly? Thank you for your support on this. This is important that it's unanimous and we have such strong support for this application. I expect, based on previous years, we would find out in November, December, That's typically when we've been notified as to where things stand. And again, I just want to make sure, I know all of you know this, but I want to make sure anybody watching that it's, if we were to be invited into the MSBA program, we would be coming back to you for requests for funding. So all this vote is today is just approving the application to go forward to the MSBA. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Second item on the agenda is a motion by Councilor Turco, which was referred to Finance Committee, discussion regarding the creation of a high school stabilization fund to use toward the construction of a new high school and to invite the mayor. Councilor Turco.
And the Finance Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe it was the Finance Director also, but...
And to invite Mayor Betancourt and Finance Director Gingras. Sorry, I didn't read the last line. You are correct, Councilor Turco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So you guys heard me speak on this a couple weeks ago. A resident had reached out to me, and he mentioned the sticker shock that a lot of communities are seeing with the new high schools and the price tags. And he asked me if we as a council or we as a city were saving. And I immediately didn't have an answer, right off, but I did explain to him that our reserves are up, and the city's been pretty fiscally responsible. But I didn't have a great answer for him. And then coincidentally, 2 weeks later, I was watching a Revere City Council meeting because I was following the construction of their new high school, and their finance director mentioned that the creation of a stabilization fund strictly dedicated to funding the new high school. So I thought it may be something that we wanted to look at. Since then, I've gotten more information through Councilor McGinn and school committee member Dunn. I've had some good conversation, and there are some limitations on where we could pull money from, and I'm under no illusion. I'm hopeful the mayor's correct that this happens very quickly. I'm under no illusion that we'll be able to pay a large portion of, but I think it's a good example to set for our residents, and also, as Ms. Dunn had mentioned, something that we could possibly submit to MSBA to let them know how serious we are about constructing a new high school. So tonight, I wouldn't be asking necessarily for a funding mechanism for it, but just to create a stabilization fund for the construction of the new high school. I'm sure Mr. Gingrich is going to give us some suggestions on how we can possibly do that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you, councilors. What question can I answer for you?
So I guess the question was, where could we pull funding out through reading further into these stabilization funds, the capabilities? I guess we can't pull directly from locally raised taxes, i.e. meals taxes, excise taxes, but we can pull from fees. So the only fees that I think of would be building department fees, new growth, items like that we could fund this with. I would like to see some seed money at a further point. I think that even the ability to pay for a feasibility study or some upfront costs that the city is going to incur once approved would be great if we could accomplish that goal. So how can we do that?
My suggestion is if we establish the fund to utilize free cash, if after the books are closed, we evaluate where we stood for the prior year, and say the free cash comes in at 12 million, then we can determine and actually put in sort of a council motion that, once free cash is certified, we'll come to Finance Committee and evaluate the free cash and have the council vote how much they would like to put in based on the circumstances of the economics of that point in time.
So yeah, you had mentioned that to me in a phone conversation a while back, and I was a bit reluctant because I wanted to see some immediate deposits into it to show, but I do agree with you that, with the economy as it is, and being unsure as to where we stand at the end of the year with, in the future year, it's probably the best idea. So I'd be more than happy to just create the fund tonight. I will say that the problem I had, my reluctance was based on Revere had created the fund 2.5 years ago and never put a dime into it. So I didn't want to see us follow down that road. But when does free cash get certified?
So we currently have certified free cash, so we could transfer from that now. It expires June 30th, and traditionally I get recertified somewhere towards the end of November.
Thank you. So is that something that you and the mayor could maybe discuss about prior to June 30th, making an initial deposit into the, or would you prefer to wait until, well, I guess that's a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I hate to put you on the spot. So is that something that you feel that, we could make an initial deposit, whether it even be $50,000, into a fund like this if the council chooses to create the fund tonight? And I'm not asking for that tonight. I'm just asking that this is going to come up in probably a future meeting if it's approved tonight. Or would you prefer to wait until next year's free cash is certified?
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for bringing this forward. I thought this was, I didn't know too much about it when it was first brought forward, and talking to Mr. Gingras and the finance team, there's some real merit to this. So truthfully, I would kind of take my lead from Mike and kind of follow what his recommendation would be. I think there's arguments both ways, but I would really take my lead from Mr. Gingras.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go back to you, Mike. I was going to say you had the right person. Yeah, okay, I should have stayed with you. So, again, Mike, is that something we could do in the next upcoming weeks, or wait until after?
No, I think we should take a look at it before June 30th. We have had quite a light winter in terms of snow and ice. We still may have a small deficit, but it's not going to be the traditional $1.5 million or whatever, what have you. So we may be able to shift and actually use some of our free cash for this purpose versus, the snow.
Thank you. And the last question I had regarding this was, we had borrowed from the stabilization fund a few years back to pay the MWRA. I think it was for MWRA, and we're in repayment. I think we pay $125,000 a year back to ourselves for 10. Do you know which year we're in with that? And the reason I ask is because without any effect on the budget, we could, if this fund stays long-term to head toward the center school eventually, we could just put that $125,000 right into this stabilization fund and continue to pay it in perpetuity, and there'd be no increase in the budget.
Yeah, I'd have to check to see how many years it's been, and it's coming out of the water and sewer enterprise. So we could switch it, but it wouldn't come from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. So ultimately,
I'm sorry. You have the floor, Councilor.
So ultimately, my intention is to make a motion to create this fund tonight, and that's it. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not actually making the motion right now. I'm letting the committee know that the motion would be moved to create a stabilization fund for the construction of a new Peabody High School. And the reason I mention that is because if there's any sense that we should maybe add the center to that so that this fund could stay in effect, or if we should just leave it to a Peabody High School. I guess I'm asking for an opinion from the members.
Councilor Gamache, I just just a point of information before we go to Councilor Gamache, so the council's clear on the rules here. I believe we can come out of committee. If it's the will of the committee to advance this, we could get a positive recommendation with a simple majority vote. But to create this account, it requires 2/3 of the full council. So just be aware of that later on this evening if we get to that point. Councilor Gamache.
Yes, and to piggyback Councilor Turco's suggestion, I mean, you know, you're looking to utilize that fund for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, but you can also put and/or future new school construction in the future. And that way, we've got it for perpetuity for any new school construction. And I think that way it would continue as long as we need it for new school construction. So I think if you add that language to it, you've got everything covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Any other councilors, any members of the committee or other councilors? Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I'm not a member of the committee, but just had two general questions, just more on the stabilization fund. And this is probably more rhetorical, and you may not be able to answer it, Mr. Gingras. But if we were to put money in either, you know, after the budget season or the free cash is, you know, certified later in the year, we started putting, let's just say we ended up with, I'm making this up, like $500,000 or $1 million in 2 or 3 years, something like that. I know it's a lot of money. Would that potentially hamstring the city in that once we've put in a stabilization fund, if we had some other emergency and had to pull that money out, is there a law or a rule against that? I just don't know if I'm using the right phraseology. Once it's in there, can it come out for any other reason other than what we've set the fund up for? Thank you.
From my understanding, there's two things that are going to occur. It takes a 2/3 vote to spend the money out of stabilization, and you can repurpose the stabilization. You could rename it to something else, and I believe that would be 2/3 vote.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then lastly, and I don't know, this isn't really a fair question, but just in general, does the state look at a city if they, and this is all prudent fiscal management, if we can set aside money, it makes things, we know we need a new high school, we need to build one, we certainly want the state and need the state's assistance with that, but do we know if the MSBA looks at a city and says, oh, look how much money they've got, they don't need help from us? It's probably an unfair thing, I'd hate to say that, but I just don't know, and that's probably not a fair question, I'm just curious,
I always worry about those things as well. No, I don't believe that factors into, it's more based on a mathematical formula that the MSBA uses, so I don't think that factors in.
Thank you, I appreciate the answers.
I hope it doesn't, yeah.
Councilor O'Neill, you all set?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Councilor Rosenau.
Just a point of information on that last point. Actually, when I was on the school committee, one of the points that the state usually, they want to make sure that you're actually going to follow through. So they want to make sure that you're serious about moving forward with new building construction, because there have been times in the past that cities and towns have said, yeah, we need a new school, and then it goes to either city council or it goes to town hall, and it gets shot down. So the state did all of this work in preparation for, and did all of their accounting, assuming that it was going to go to town X, but then it didn't end up getting approved. So to your point, Councilor O'Neill, it would actually be a benefit to have some sort of funding, because it'll show that we're serious about moving forward, and that will actually raise our level. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Rossignol. Just point of information on, before I go to Councilor Peach, there's also there was a Division of Local Services publication that Mr. Gingras shared with me, and I think your point, Councilor, is that it'd be viewed in a positive light by the MSBA, kind of to allay Councilor O'Neill's concerns about the MSBA's perspective on this. It also, according to this, is viewed in a positive light by the credit rating agencies. So, you know, there's a potential advantage there as well. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your comments and Councilor Rosenau's comments have kind of answered the question that I had. But through you to Mr. Gingras, the mayor had mentioned there is merit to these stabilization funds. For myself and those at home, what's the difference between, I'm thinking of it of a basic personal bank account. I put money in my savings account, and maybe I put $25 in my Christmas fund. they don't earn different interest rates, but is there a financial benefit for us moving this money from free cash into a stabilization fund financially? I mean, Councilor McGinn has mentioned that there may be some sort of credit advantage, and of course, the non-financial reasons that the MSPCA will look at that as positive, but just that was my first initial thought, is what's the difference between putting the money here versus keeping it in free cash?
It's allowed to be invested in certain ways, but traditionally, the free cash and the money that's in the Treasury is rolling on a daily basis, and we get some nominal interest. Well, it's better now, since the interest rates have increased. But then, when the money's segregated like this, it goes into sort of a trust or a CD, so that it can earn better interest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Peach. Council Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Councilor Turco. Did I hear you correctly, Councilor, that you said that Revere started this stabilization fund but never used it or didn't implement it?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor Manning Martin, yes, they created it about 2.5 years ago with the intention of coming back to it to fund it, and they never had. And 2.5 years later, they were approved for a new high school, and there was no money in that account. So I didn't want to see that happen to us.
Thank you,
Council
Mr.
Manning
Chairman.
Martin.
So they were approved, and they started the fund, didn't put anything in it, yet they were approved? Because Mr. Gingras gave information saying that if you create this fund, it looks in your favor, I guess, so that you're committed to the project. But they were approved after starting the stabilization, but never putting any funds into it. And if that's the case, do you know why they didn't?
So yes, they were approved. I don't think that the stabilization fund is a determining factor in the approval. I think they would have gotten approved either way, as I think that will get approved either way within the next year or two. The reason they didn't put money in is because, similar to where we are, there was question as to where they could pull money from without a direct effect on the yearly budget. They had probably some misinformation from what I heard, because their finance director said you could take from the food and beverage tax or the excise taxes. I'm reading here that you can't do that. So I think that the council was reluctant at the time to say, let's take 1% out of excise taxes and what effect that might have long term. So their intention was to come back to it, but as we know, other things happened and they never got back to it, and then they were approved. And they were still looking to fund it even recently. They eventually voted down the new high school about 2 weeks ago, but they were still looking to have that account funded to pay long-term debt on the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Manning Martin. Any other councilors? Seeing none. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moves to create a stabilization fund for the construction of a new Peabody High School and any future new school needed within the city.
Councilors, you've heard the motion by Councilor Turco. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Gamache, McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on, next item on the agenda is transfer funds, police salaries in an amount of $185,400 and police overtime $1,017,200. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. The Patrolmen's Association recently settled their contract, and this transfer request will fund a small amount of retro and then the funding for those salaries for the rest of the year. In addition to, we're also asking for coverage of some of the overtime deficits that have occurred because of the number of staff that have been out or have left.
Questions from the committee? I think we have the chief here as well. If you have any questions for him. Questions from the committee. Councilor Gamache.
I'm just going to say it again as I do with the fire department. Last year, they come for $1 million for salaries and overtime, and I asked the question, we'll be fine. We won't be back for $1 million. Here we are again, the end of the FY, looking for $1 million. I understand that there's circumstances beyond our control, but we just can't continue to do this. It's just not fiscally responsible. And, you know, we have to pay this bill. There's no two ways around it. But I just think that either when we put the budget forward for next year, we incorporate a little bit more money to figure out what our balances are going to be in overtime for the police and fire. If it's not the amount of money you need, put it in the budget. I'd rather have us budget this money responsibly than arbitrarily come in every year for $1 million for this and $1 million for that. It's just fiscally irresponsible. And I understand with the circumstances with sickness and other things and employment supply, but I'll tell you, if this was to just get the money that hasn't already been spent, I wouldn't be voting in favor of this. I think that we have to make sure that when these budgets are sent to us, that we have a reasonable responsibility to understand what the overtime is going to be and provide the ability for us to say, you're not going to come back in for $1 million every year. And what I'd also like to see is that if we're trending towards this next budget and it's December or January and we're already at or exceeding the overtime budget, to let us know up front so that we're not into a situation where we're going to fund this every year. So that's my, and again, I said the same thing to Chief Daley. I'm going to say the same thing to Chief Griffin. I just find it that, and, you know, maybe Chief Griffin can answer that. Maybe, you know, we have to look at some unexpected circumstances and then you can roll that back into other areas of the police budget or the fire budget. But at least we're creating our tax base based upon those projections for the budget and not coming in and using funds that eventually we won't have. If I have a question for this, the funding to offset this is ARPA. How much do we have left in ARPA? Because this is going to eventually run out too. We're going to run out of ARPA funds. So in reality, we're not really charging the taxpayer right now because we're taking it from another amount of money that was given to the city for the ARPA. So if we didn't have any ARPA funds left available, we'd be looking to use some other free cash, stabilization, whatever you want to call it, that would then interfere with our budgeting and the tax rate. So, quick question, maybe not to you, Mr. Mayor, but to Mike. How much we got left in ARPA?
After this transfer would be a little over $5 million.
So we're going to take the entire amount of 1.2. After this, we're going to have $5 million remaining. Okay. I mean, I just don't want this to become a recurring situation every year. And I said that last year, and I'll probably wind up saying it again next year. But ARPA was created for, I think, you know, more meaningful expenses to create a betterment for the city. And this, to me, is not right. So I'll turn the floor over, unless the mayor has something to add.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I did want to challenge some of the statements you made, Councilor. You know, you said that these are things that are outside of our control, but then you say it's fiscally irresponsible. It can't be both. There are three items, and you know this, there are three items that we do not have real control over. Snow and ice budget, police and fire overtime, which is directly related to typically injuries and sickness, and then the third is special education. We take our best estimates, and we've always underfunded those. This year, it looks like in snow and ice it's going to work for us, but it rarely, if ever, does. And this one, we did increase significantly the fire OT last year, but the police one we didn't. And I do have to look at that when we put the numbers to be more realistic. But a lot of this is outside. I can't speak to injuries, I can't speak to sickness, but there's just things that we were not expecting that have happened. And these things typically happen every year. But I do think that I need to increase that line item. But a lot of this is outside of our control. And it's gotten worse. And I think if you look back over the history, since COVID hit, it's become really difficult. And it's not so much that there's been an increase in sickness and in injuries, which has happened here or there, but it's because of COVID. It still relates back to during that time when COVID hit, they just shut down all the academies. So we've been continually trying to scramble to fill vacancies. The good news is that the fire department right now, they're at full capacity. The police department is not. What I can report to you is that we have put forward in the high teens a number of people that have been are going through the process right now of testing that's required for them to be sworn in to become reserves and then full-time. That's very much in play, and we expect that we'll be having a swearing-in ceremony very quickly. That should get us back to our numbers where we need to be, but there's still going to be some time on that because of academies and things of that nature. But it has been a scramble and real difficult because for over a year, we just didn't have academies. So it's made it much more difficult, and the police department has been shorthanded, and then you factor in some injuries and some long-term sickness that we just didn't anticipate. It's been a struggle. So, but I did want to make it clear that this is an area that year to year, I think has gotten worse because of COVID, but it's hard to really plan for this. So this year has been a little higher than most, but I do think it's tied to COVID, and I do think the fire department should definitely see a significant improvement next time around. I think you're going to see that. The police department, once we swear in the new full-timers, they have to go into an academy, so they won't fully count yet in terms of the numbers. But then I think you'll see a significant improvement there as well. We're actually going to be putting on 4 new firefighters just to get, because of some retirements over the winter. So I feel that like we're in a real good place there with the fire department. The police department, this next wave is going to be critical for us to get to the numbers where we need to be. So I think your points are accurate and fair to some degree, but it is hard, and I hate hearing about, claims of fiscal irresponsibility on these items because it's so hard to predict.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Gamache, you still have the floor.
Yes, through you to the mayor or the chief, is there a clause of when these new people get put onto the rolls that there's a 15 or 16 week shadow period that they have to be, and therefore that's going to also increase naturally our overtime?
There's two different things that can happen. If an officer is not already academy trained, they'll have to go to an academy that's about 24 weeks long and then have a 3-month what they call field training process. In this group that we're looking at right now, I think we have at least 3 that are already academy trained. So if they are successful through the process of their physicals and their psychologicals, theoretically they could be back and working on their own probably by Labor Day.
So that's with the 3 months shadowing? Or what?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So the other ones that we're hiring now, or hope to hire, we're still in the process, those would still have to go to the academy.
Correct.
And then we would still, after that, they still got the 15 or 16 weeks with the 3 months, whatever it figures out to be.
Yeah, it's
to shadow.
12 weeks.
Okay.
They do a field training process.
So it's basically the same as the firefighters that was given to us. They said they had to shadow them for an X amount of time.
The shadow part, they don't. Their academy is much shorter than ours.
Yes. Yes.
But the shadow part is roughly the same.
I just wanted. So that's going to also increase some of our overtime levels when those officers have to be shadowed because they're not really capable of filling into the position of the police department. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some the same concerns as Council Gamache regarding the ARPA funds, given that it's a large number, again, going towards overtime. But I'm encouraged, again, Mayor, as I was when you addressed the firefighters' overtime, with the same question, that we're hoping to have a better handle on this next year. We wouldn't be going for ARPA funds for overtime. And, you know, just today there was a great article in the Lynn item about all the projects that Linfield had done with their ARPA money. And they didn't list any overtime, but I don't think they would. It was more of a bragging of all the infrastructure and beautification efforts and increasing the quality of life of the residents that the ARPA funds were used for. They may have used it for overtime. They just didn't highlight that because that wasn't the intent of the article. So I was wondering, Mayor, if I'd like to make a motion if we could, the balance is $5 million, if we could get kind of a list of what the money has been spent on and what the proposals are moving forward for the remainder of the money, for the ARPA money, you know, hoping that it's for infrastructure and more beautification efforts and things like that. If I would you support that if I were to make that motion?
Absolutely, Council. I think that's a good motion, and I do know that there's some money. We've been trying to wean ourselves off of the reliance on ARPA because it was a significant amount we used towards revenue replacement. But I do think we have some money targeted for some infrastructure projects. So I think the motion's a good one.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the support on that. So I'd like to make a motion to request from the Mayor the balance of the ARPA funds, the uses to this date, and any proposed future, any proposed uses moving forward. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. On the motion, Council Gamache.
Yes, a quick question to either the mayor or Mr. Gingras. When does the ARPA money have to be spent down? What's the end date that all this has to be taken care of?
I believe it's December of 2024. It has to be committed by then, and then you have another year to spend it.
So to carry that one, you have to have it listed as a use, but you can spend it until 25.
Correct. It has to be encumbered.
Okay. Encumbered, yes. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, just if I could have a moment just to add to that, because these are very good questions. So, in years past, when at the height of COVID, we used I think $4.5 million for revenue replacement specific to the budget. Then, as the years have gone on, we've tried to reduce that. So last year we did 2.5. This year we're going to be planning to present $1.5 million for revenue replacement for this budget. That might change a little bit as we work through the budget, but we're trying to lessen the reliance on it, so then, of course, when that money's no longer available to us, it doesn't hurt us too much. So I am, like I said to Councilor Manning Martin, I do think there's some money that we could utilize for some different projects, some infrastructure work, water and sewer, some other infrastructure improvements, beautification things. So I can get that information to you. But in terms of, there is one more revenue replacement that I intend to bring forward when we do the budget in June. Then we're looking at about $1.5 million.
Council Turco.
Thank you. While we're on that subject, so Mayor, right now there's, I'm sorry, Mr. Gingrich, right now you said there's $5.3 million left. 1.5 million is committed for revenue replacement, so we're right under 4 million. What else out of that under 4 million is already committed? So I guess my question is there anything left, really?
Well, yeah, there's some money that's going to the health department and security right now, and then you're still going to be in that $3-4 million ballpark, at the end of the day.
Okay, and in reference to the projects that the mayor's mentioned in the past, I think there's one up at Johnson, and there's a couple other projects, Mayor, that you mentioned. Are those already, those haven't reduced this number yet, so they still need, so that money's committed, correct? But it's not taken out of this number, so.
Granite, what was that one, the drainage one?
Aberdeen?
Granite and Aberdeen were the two projects done, so that money's already out.
It's already out.
Yeah, that's already out, but the projects you mentioned in the future, Mayor, that money hasn't been taken out for Johnson and Lowell, and there's another project that you had mentioned.
One we're definitely looking at is the Lowell Street over, the corner of Johnson over near the West Peabody Fire Station. That stretch of Lowell Street, we're going to be doing some work over there. So that could be, likely would be potential utilization of this money, of some remaining ARPA money. But that would be several $100,000. It would still be a significant amount left.
Thank you. And the only other question regarding the overtime, Mike, do you recall what was the original budget number for the overtime, for the police overtime?
Yeah, I just looked at it today. It was $800,000 for the regular overtime.
So we're at 1.8 million for the year in total. So that leads me to my last question to the chief. Chief, I entirely agree with the mayor. It's a very difficult number to come up with IAs, comps. But as the manager of the department, I know that we have built in overtime for just in case. So when you start to deplete that $800,000 that was originally budgeted, is there anything that you look at to say that, I can not call this overtime, or where can you not call overtime if needed? Is there anywhere?
Most of the overtime is mandated through contractual obligations with number of officers out on the street, those types of things. Going forward, there is some overtime now that we can supplement some seizure money for, so that we won't have these problems. Unfortunately, what created this scenario was we hired 12 officers last January, and since that time we've lost 11. So we've only had a net gain of 1, which I think only like 3 or 4 did we anticipate actually leaving, and the rest, for various reasons, have left. In addition to that, there's 6 officers who are currently unavailable, either through illness or injury or other types of leave. So the combination of that is what's kind of created this issue. And unfortunately, we have to staff the patrols, and then we also have some other obligations that we have to fulfill. But recently, within the last month or so, we did get a couple different seizures that came in that we're going to be able to utilize to offset some of that, and that was the plan. We can't use it to supplant any budgetary items, but if there's special events, if there's other things, we can go back now and shift some of that money to support. That was the plan, to do it that way.
All right, thank you, Chief. So could we plan a special event? Wink, wink. No, but I appreciate the answer, Chief.
Thank you.
Council Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the chief, you mentioned the 12 officers we put on last year, which was, I think, the first time we put on new officers in about a 5-year period. A large class like that. I mean, we had other officers come in, but so we netted really 1 officer. Obviously, we see officers that are projected to retire. Either they've said they're going to retire, or they're just approaching that age. Do you see with the 15 or so that we might get from this class that we're going to just see ourselves in the same position at the end of this year, or do you think that there's another class of 15 we might get from the next civil service exam? It's hard because it's every other year. We're pulling from a small pool here, so.
At this point, I'm aware of two officers have made me aware that they'll be retiring. One is going to have to due to age. That's what I'm aware of right now. Unfortunately, they get to a certain age, they could stay for another 10 years, or they could leave in 10 days. The plan we have, and I've spoke with Ms. O'Donnell about, is as soon as we finish processing this list by the end of June, There's a new certified list July 1st. We're gonna grab that list and start up again so that we can just grabbing a bunch of officers in one big group has shown to be kind of complicated because it requires 20 interviews, 20 medicals, it's almost going to be more beneficial to do it in a smaller number. Even when they come out, trying to field train 9 officers was a difficult thing. So I think the better approach is going to be smaller groups, as you said. And now they're doing civil service exams every year, so there's a new list every year. So we'll just keep rolling until we can get back to where we need to be.
Thank you. And just to add to Chief's comments, which I thought were right on, mistake I made was that we didn't, when COVID hit, and obviously that was unexpected, we didn't have enough reserve officers. Our reserve lists, both the fire and the police, were just insufficient. So when everything happened and everything just got shut down and there were no academies, we didn't have the reserve list to rely on. So I'm going to work very hard with Chief Daly and Chief Griffin to make sure that does not happen again with our human resources. So as the Chief mentioned, right after this list, when we swear in the new group, we're going to ask for the new list, as well as the fire department as well. A new list is coming out in the fire department, we think later this month, or excuse me, later in April. And I intend probably not long after that to ask for that list as well. We're going to be putting on 4 new firefighters, I expect, within the next month or two, once they have to do their testing. And then that'll bring us to about 6 or 7 reserves. I'd like to be up in the middle to high teens, just so in case something terrible were to happen again, that we're secure, where when COVID hit, we were not. And we've been playing catch up ever since.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're all set, Councilor Peach. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to make a motion if so be it.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer from ARPA funds account number 250-05900-34812-2022 in the amount of $1,202,600 to police salaries, account number 100-02100-51110 in the amount of $185,400, and police overtime, account number 100-02100-51130 in the amount of $1,017,200 for a total of $1,202,600. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you've heard the motion by Councilor Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Yes. Gould. Gamache. Yes. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item on the agenda, transfer funds, Central Fire Station Building Assessment, $29,710, and Sewer Pump Station Rehab, $90,500. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll be brief. I know we're running a little bit behind. I know we have a full meeting after this. I did want to mention this item, the Central Fire Station Building Assessment. A number of you, it was great. We had a majority of the councilors, and I went on a tour of the fire stations in the city to get a real good sense of the needs. This is as a result of that. We've worked with Spencer Preservation Group in order to move forward to have them come in to do an assessment of the building, because not only does that building need work, but it's an historical building that requires some special attention. So we think this will be a great asset to give us a sense of what we really need to do at that building moving forward. I think this is a good investment. And then also I intend at some point this year to come to you for some work over at Engine 5, which is the Lynn Street Station. There's some needs over at that building. Really, all the stations need some attention. But this, we felt, Engine 1 headquarters needs this assessment because of the historical nature of the building, and then also Engine 5, which I intend to bring at a later time. So I think this is a good investment, and we can start attending to some of the needs of those buildings. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you want to talk about the second item as well? the sewer pump station rehab?
Sure, I'll actually turn that over to Mr. Gingras. That is for the Johnson Street water pump station and just some rehab work there.
Yeah, as the mayor said, there's some neighbors in that area that are being affected, and this is going to rectify that situation.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Question from the committee. Councilor Gamache.
A question to Mr. Gingras on the Johnson Street. I thought we shut that station down.
I believe you're correct, but they need to rehab it, and they're using a whole different technology to do that.
Is it the station that is located directly opposite the bike path?
I can't.
It's on the lower bottom of the Johnson Street well, and it was supposedly shut down for contaminants 25 years ago. That's why I'm surprised that it's still going to be utilized if this is truly the station that I'm looking at, or I think it is.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I just have the memo from Will on the Johnson Street sewer pump station, ejector sewer pump station. So I don't know exactly where it's located.
Okay, because I know that Johnson Street pump has been shut off for quite some time. If it's actually the Johnson Street pump. Now maybe you don't have the exact location, but that was shut down when Carnivale was here.
Council, I think this is the sewer pump station. I don't know if this is something different.
A water
but
pump?
This has been in operation.
Okay, so it's
I
not
think
the
it's
one I'm
something
thinking
different.
of.
No.
Okay.
It's not water related. It's water and
sewer
sewer
related?
related, but this is specific to the sewer pump improvements there. So yeah, I think what you're thinking of is different. We're not bringing that back to life.
Okay.
This is just an improvement of the
I'm just
existing.
trying to figure out where it is on Johnson Street.
I believe it's
Is
over.
it the one over by the condos?
It's behind the condos.
Okay.
Over in that, because we needed PMLP to come in to do some work over in that area.
So
it's
Weston
right
and
behind
Sam-
those condos off of Pine Street.
Yeah, Weston and Sampson rebuilt the one in front
Right.
last year. So this is another one that's in the rear part. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, thank you. I should have been clear on that, but it's a completely different one than you're thinking of.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Other committee members? Councilor Turco.
Very quickly, Mayor, regarding the Central Fire Station assessment, being that that's a historic building, isn't the Tremont Street Fire Station historic also? I mean, is it worth assessing both at the same time? Is it money savings for us to do that, since we also know that has some issues?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's declared historical, but that building, the stories that building could tell, I'm sure. But let me check on that. That actually is a good suggestion. Let me see if that would qualify under this program or under this under the work that this company does, because they're kind of a specialist firm. Chief Daley did, reached out to a number of firms to try to find the right one that could assess the need. So let me check on that, Council. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ready to make a motion?
Please proceed.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account number 270-0000-33009, Revenue Reserve for Appropriation, the amount of $29,710, to account number 300-02200-58241-2023, 00000002201. The account name, Central Fire Station Building Assessment, also in the amount of $29,710. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Gould, could you add the second item?
I sure will. I'd like to also make a motion to transfer from account number 460-0000-31101, account name, Water Sewer Retained Earnings, in the amount of $90,500, to account number 460-044 0058471203 0000004402. The account name Sewer Pump Station Rehab, also in the amount of $90,500. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion. Councilor Gould on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Manny Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item on the agenda, item E, capital equipment, farm truck in an amount of $65,000. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. This is a request to transfer from the Tilly's revolving fund for a new truck that they need for their operations for deliveries and pickups.
Questions from the committee? Questions from other councilors? Council Gould.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion if you so choose. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from Tilly's Farm revolving account 260-000-0035-615 the amount of $65,000 to capital equipment farm truck. Account numbers 300-000005855, 2023-0000006640 in the amount of $65,000. So moves, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, you heard the motion from Council Gould. On the motion, seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould,
Yes.
Gamache, McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Did he yell yes?
Next item on the agenda, transfer funds, traffic signal upgrade, King Street, in an amount of $105,000. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think all of you are very familiar with this spot as well. Certainly a very busy, very dangerous intersection at the corner of Lowell Street, King, and Endicott Street. We reached out to World Tech to do an assessment of that to potentially give us some options. I know Councilor Daigle has spoken about this particular area as a source of real concern for her ward and for the city. We will ask World Tech to give us a sense of some options that we may have. They provided, I think you have the memo, and we feel, and based on recommendations from Bob Labossiere, Will Politz, and the engineering team, that we think that the installation of the mast arms to improve the visibility is the appropriate step to take here. So seeking funding in order to move forward with this project, this work. We're hoping to do this work this year. As mentioned in the memo, or the letter from me, there is $60,000 that will be coming to the city of Peabody from the King Street development, Hemisphere development, required under their permit to pay $60,000 to us specifically for this intersection work. But however, that money will not be provided to us until they get their building permit. I just feel, and I know Councilor Daigle and others feel the same way, that that's something that could take some time, it will take time, but we wanted to move forward on this and try to repair and improve this intersection as soon as we can. So we feel this is a good investment and something that's needed and long overdue, and happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions to the committee? Council Gould.
I don't really have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to give Councilor Daigle credit for all the hard work and keeping this in focus, and eventually someone's going to get killed there, and I'm glad you've been able to get some action from the city. Thank you, Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor Turco.
Thank you. Yeah, also, I'd like to say the same to Councilor Daigle. You know, I know this is a big question. We get asked what we've done to improve traffic, so this is one of my answers from now on. Anyway, Mayor, do you know which option? There's three options that were presented to us. It looks like this coincides with option number 3 at $104,100, but is it just a mix of the three options, or is it one specific option that we chose that World Tech had suggested to us? I don't know if you have the options in front of you, but they're so those three options. Item number 3 was closest to $104,000 or $105,000. So I wasn't sure if it's everything in item number 3 or just a few different things.
It was. Thank you. Yeah, it was. They felt, based on the engineering review, that item number 3 was the best one. So yeah, that's the $104,100. That's what we would be moving forward with. That may contain elements of the first two. I think there are certain elements that are consistent with all the proposals, but the large cost would be for the mast arms specific to this work. So that's, we felt that that would be most effective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Council Turco. Any other councilors? Council Gould.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account number 100-0000-35901 in the unreserved fund balance free cash in the amount of $105,000 to account number 300-000-005-2023-00-0000-4210 in the traffic signal upgrade King Street in the amount of $105,000. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, hear the motion for Council Gould on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco. Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould. Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item on the agenda, transfer of funds, utility software upgrade, amount of $200,000. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you, Councilor. This is a request to provide funding to upgrade our utility billing software, specifically our water and sewer billing. Our existing software is end of life. The company that has been providing it is sold to another company, has not done any really upgrades to that. So we're going to move to the state-of-the-art Tyler software, which many other communities use. And this is sort of the phase one. We're going to begin with the water and sewer utility billing and transition into our total financial package, over a period of time. That way it would all be integrated. And this software also has a unique features for online access by customers, seeing usage histories, and is pretty robust in that respect. In addition to that, we'll be coming forward with a program to try to replace all the water and sewer meters in the city, make them smart meters where the readings could be done electronically over internet. And this will all be part of that whole process over the next several years.
Thank you, Ms. Gingras. Questions from the committee? Questions from other councilors? Seeing none, Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from account number 460-0000-31101, water sewer retained earnings in the amount of $200,000 to account number 460-04420-58306, utility software upgrade in the amount of $200,000. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, hear the motion for Council Gould on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco. Manning Martin. Gould.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Last item on the agenda, transfer fund, cable fund expense, amount of $206,020.31. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. This is the traditional cable transfer for Comcast. This is their second quarter payment so that we can transfer the funds to the PAT.
Thank you, Ms. Gingras. Questions from the committee? Questions from other councilors? Seeing none, Council Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to transfer from Receipts Reserved Cable Fund account number 270-000-33017, the amount of $206,020.31 to Cable Fund Expense. Account numbers 270-0000-53007, again in the amount of $206,020.31. So moves, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, hear the motion for Council Gould on the motion. Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Councilors, hear the motion for Council Gould. All in favor? Any opposed to vote? We are adjourned.
Good evening. The City Council will convene on March 23rd to hold a regular meeting at 7:30 p.m. for the purpose of discussing any and all business via in-person and remote participation in accordance with Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 20A, B, and C of the Acts of 2021, signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be provided in the following manner. 1, this meeting is being televised live by Peabody Access Television on Cable Channel 9. 2, real-time public comment during public hearings can be addressed to the Peabody City Council using the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. Users may view the meeting and make a comment or questions to the chair via the audio option. Please visit www.peabody-ma.gov for Zoom information. This meeting is being taped by Peabody Access Television and is also being recorded by the City Council stenographer. Let's all rise for a moment of silence. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. All right, moving on to hearings this evening. First, we have an entertainment license for Marco's Pizzeria. The clerk will now read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, March 23rd, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from Marco's Pizzeria, Inc., 47 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for the use of non-live entertainment, specifically television, digital, internet music, and radio at said 47 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under Calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Craig S. Welton, City Council President.
Thank you, Clerk Danforth.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I practice law at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and I'm appearing on behalf of Marco's Pizzeria, Inc., and Marco Stefanelli, who has asked me to deliver this evening. I guess I get pasta or something. But we're happy to say that this is an application for entertainment license. It's all electronic. Everybody who will be operating the electronic, digital, and likewise equipment will be fully clothed, I can assure you, and there will be, it's all non-live entertainment. Thank you. Marco is here this evening if we'd care to ask him any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Kelty. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this applicant this evening? Anyone on Zoom would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone on Zoom? Seeing none, Councilor Gamache.
Yes, through you to Councilor Kelty, probably doesn't have this before him, but the owner of the property is in arrears in taxes, not that it's the responsibility of
Alfie.
Mr. Alfie is in arrears of a little over $18,000. So I know we can't hold that against the petitioner, and I just wanted to make that the council understand that. I have no problem with him trying to improve his business and doing whatever he can to stay viable and make some money. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention.
I'd be happy to provide that information to Mr. Alfie.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Any other councilors?
Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Any other councilors? All in favor and opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gamache.
Yes, at this time, I'd move approval on the application of Marco's Pizzeria, Inc., 47 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for the use of non-live entertainment, specifically television, digital, internet, music, and radio at said 47 Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. So moved.
Thank you, councilors. You've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Oh, excuse me, roll call on this one. My apologies.
Councilors Turco. Yes. Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you. Next hearing, entertainment license for Ithaki Restaurant and Bistro. The clerk will now read the notice.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, March 23rd, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from Ithaki Restaurant and Bistro, Inc., 1A Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for the use of non-live entertainment, specifically television and digital internet music and live entertainment at said 1A Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Craig S. Welton, City Council President.
Thank you, Clerk Danforth. Could the petitioner please join us at the podium? Could I get a motion to continue?
I would, at this time, move to continue this matter to our next meeting and notify the petitioners that somebody has to be here to represent them. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. All in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. All right, thank you. Moving on to 4C. This is an item concerning a business in Ward 1, so I'm going to ask Councilor Manning Martin to serve as chair, and I will resume as Councilor of Ward 1. Thank you.
We will move on to hearing 4C, special permit for 145 Summer Street. Would the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, March 23rd, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from Mohammed Hassan, 7 School Street, Quincy, Mass., for a special permit to amend Special Permit 21-2004 to change the hours of operation 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. and delivery only from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. at 145 Summit Street, Unit 1, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with Sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Craig S. Welton, City Council President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the petitioner please come to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us what you'd like to do this evening? Thank you.
My name Muhammad Hassan, 7 School Street, Quincy.
And tell us what you'd like this evening. Would you like to explain what you'd like to do this evening with your application?
Yes, I need a special permit 2 night. It's just delivery.
Okay, so you want to make an adjustment. You want to make an adjustment to change the hours of operation 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. and delivery only from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor of the petitioner? Anyone in favor? Is there? Yes. Good evening, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joe, my name is Pasquale DeLeo. I live at 155 Loxley Road in Linfield. I'm the owner of the property. I'm also the previous owner of the business that sold it to Mohammed Hamad. Basically, I could say to you, I've been working with him in transition for the past 3 months of the business, and I can say he's a respectful, hardworking individual. And as owners of the property, we don't have an issue with the extension of the hours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here in the audience to speak in favor of the petitioner? Anyone in favor? Is there anyone in opposition? Is there anyone in the audience this evening in opposition? How about Zoom? Do we have anyone on Zoom? No one is raising their hand in favor or opposed. Zoom? None. Being none, I will defer now to the ward councilor, Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Hassan. Also had the opportunity to speak with Mr. DeLeo, as he had an opportunity to mention. You all probably remember Plum Tomatoes. He ran a very successful pizza business there for many years. Has recently sold to Mr. Hassan. The only issue that I had with this request was increasing the hours to 2 a.m., which I did hear from a couple of neighbors that they were a little concerned that that would be a little too late. So I had spoken to Mr. Hassan earlier this week, and he was amenable to adjusting that to be open until midnight with delivery only from 10 to 12. So that's where we're going to start with the change in hours. We also had the conversation that if this goes well over a number of months and he sees a business need to increase the hours, that he would be able to come back in front of us. But for now, he's amenable to actually going to midnight with the last 2 hours of 10 to 12 being only delivery. I now open it up if there's any other councilors who have any other questions, either for myself or for the petitioner.
Thank you, Councilor Welton. I am going to jump back to someone from home who raised their hand just as we were closing. So there is someone on Zoom.
Yes, my name's Tom DeMarcus, and I'm not here on this one, but I was the lawyer for Ithaki, and I had my hand up and nobody called on me. So after this one's over, I'd like to be called on the Ithaki matter.
All right, we'll come back to you, sir. Don't go anywhere.
I won't. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Are there any councilors that would like to speak? Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'd like to congratulate Mr. DeLeo Pasquale. Nice job. You did a great job running the business for years, and I wish you well. Through you, Councilor Manning Martin, to Councilor Welton, can you tell me what the current hours are day by day and what we're moving to, please?
Yes, currently the hours are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So this extension would be an hour earlier in the morning, and it would be 2 hours later in the evening, with the last 2 hours being delivery only. Currently, Mr. DeLeo could confirm, but I don't believe there's a delivery option for Plum Tomatoes outside of a Uber Eats type situation.
Going from 9 a.m. to midnight?
Correct.
7 days a week?
Correct.
And 10 to 12 is, what's the?
Delivery only, so the restaurant,
so the
will
restaurant
be closed for
closes at 10,
customers.
9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and then every day 10 to 12, delivery only?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other councilors? Being none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, Madam Chair.
For the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to now make a motion, to approve a special permit to amend special permit 21-2004 to change the hours of operation 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 12 o'clock a.m. and delivery only from 10 p.m. to 12 o'clock a.m. at 145 Summit Street, Unit 1, Peabody, Massachusetts, as filed in accordance with Section 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. So moved.
You heard the motion. Roll call on the motion.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor Welton?
Sorry, I was just motioning that this is also a Ward 1. So if you could still remain as chair.
I thought you were just waiting.
Thank you.
Yes, but the issue of the entertainment license for Ataki, that is it Ward 5? And
Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Hassan thinks he's free to go.
You are approved, and thank you very much, and congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
So if there are no objections from the Ward 5 councilor, I'd like to have the clerk address the matter as it stands.
So it's my understanding.
Is he on?
Yes, Mr. DeMarcus
Yes,
is
thank you.
on. It's my understanding that we have been going forward, that we would like all applicants or their representatives to appear in person.
Mr. Gamache?
Yes, and I was one of those that was a big proponent of having the petition here. I know that it's a simple matter, but I would like to continue that to the 13th. And notify the petitioner that somebody has to be present when they're here for the applications.
Sure, and I think he's on Zoom right now, so he was just notified, but I'm sure when we send him notice, we can add additional information to reinforce that. Right? Sure, yeah. Please open it up to the gentleman. Thank you.
If you'd like me to come down, I'd rather come down right now, rather than continue it.
Are you 5 minutes away, sir?
No, I'm 15 minutes away.
That'll do.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll see you in a bit.
All right,
Moving
I won't
along-
get stopped
moving-
for speeding.
Okay, moving right along. We have hearing 4D, special permit for 95 Lynn Street, which is also in Ward 1. Would the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as the special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, March 23rd, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom on the application from 95 Lynn Street LLC, care of Christine Miola, 4 Summit Terrace, Peabody, Mass., for a special permit to allow for a personal service establishment specifically for a business use that customizes a variety of apparel at 95 Lynn Street, Unit 5, Peabody, Mass., as filed in accordance with Sections 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.peabody-ma.gov under Calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Craig S. Welton, City Council President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the petitioner please state your name and address for the record and tell us what you'd like to do?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., appearing on behalf of Christine Miola, who is the owner of G&G Apparel. She has purchased the unit at 95 Lynn Street. It's Unit 5 in that building at 95 Lynn Street. Her residence is 232 Lynn Street. My application erroneously stated that her residence was 4 Summit Terrace. That's the folly of word processors. That's Billy DeMaury's. That's his residence. So we're asking for a special permit to operate a personal service establishment. What Christine does is she is the owner and proprietor of G&G Apparel. They make much of the sporting equipment for several of the leagues here in the city of Peabody. After I took on representing Christine, I noticed that my granddaughter runs around in a lot of stuff that says G&G Apparel, and now I realize exactly what it is that Christine does. She has no equipment such that she would be manufacturing this clothing. She does have one sewing machine, which is actually a remnant from COVID, because during COVID, Christine actually made masks, COVID masks. That sewing machine is not utilized in this business. The applique it used to be kind of a silk screening process. Now it's more of a press than an applique with your team names, et cetera. She does not manufacture the actual clothing, but instead customizes it in the form of these appliques, or if need be, if there was some embroidery that would need to be done, then she could do that. That would probably be sent out. But in general, the business is this applique of your team name, and they're already labeled G&G Apparel. So we're happy Christine is here this evening. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Attorney Kelty. Is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor of the petitioner? Anyone in the audience in favor? Is there anyone on Zoom in favor? On Zoom? Anyone? No. Anyone in the audience in opposition? Is there anyone in the audience in opposition to the application? Anyone on Zoom in opposition? None. Being none, Council Welton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think many of us are familiar with the operation that Christine runs, as Attorney Kelty had referenced. If anyone has any young ones in their lives that play sports, you've probably seen their logo on the back of a jersey or on the front of a 4th of July t-shirt or something along those lines. I will say that I did have a chance to talk to a number of neighbors. There was only a few concerns that were raised, and that was parking, because I think many of you may remember that parking on that area of Lynn Street is very tight. I was happy to let them know and happy to discuss with Christine that their building, which they own, actually includes parking spaces. They will have a retail presence with limited hours, but the majority of their customers will be picking up orders that have been made ahead of time and prepared for them to pick up. So it wouldn't be a situation in which someone would be out front parking on Lynn Street for multiple hours, that type of thing. Very straightforward in terms of the type of business they'd be doing, and very quick turnaround with customers. So I'll now open it up to any other councilors if you have any questions for myself, Attorney Kelty, or Christine.
Council Turco.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Craig said. No, Council Welton said the Muellers have done a lot for the city of Peabody, and not just with athletics. My daughter, they helped her set up an online store for DECA to raise money. It's easy for the kids to do, and they put a lot of time and effort in with, the risk of no reward. So I want to thank them, and I do support the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Any further comments from councilors? Being none, Councilor Welton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special permit to allow for a personal service establishment, specifically for a business that uses a business use that customizes a variety of apparel at 95 Lynn Street, Unit 5, Peabody, Massachusetts, as filed in accordance with Section 4.2.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. So moved.
You heard the motion. Roll call on the motion. Do you have a comment on the motion? Maybe I missed it. Motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Welton, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. On the motion. Roll call on the motion.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Ginn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin, for sitting in as chair. Now moving on, before we get to item 4E, I would like to call on Councilor Gould to provide a recap from the ICD meeting this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting this evening of the Industrial Community Development Committee, and I apologize, I should have my paperwork with me, but in it, all councilors other than Councilor Melville was in attendance. There was very good discussion amongst councilors and Mr. Bellavance, and we are keeping this in subcommittee, and we will hopefully have the next iteration, which should be the final one, but not counting on it. But it was a good dialogue, and we're leaving it in committee. So moved, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Since we are not moving this from subcommittee, we will not open item 4B this evening. So the motion on the floor is to continue item 4E, zoning amendment for the Mills Overlay District. So moved. Can we get a, all right, so the motion's been put forth, so we get a roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Daigle. O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Yes. Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, councilors. Now moving on to item 4F, a special permit for 180 Newbury.
Through the chair.
Yes,
I may.
Councilor Gamache.
There is some, if I may ask Councilor Attorney Kelty to address the council prior to this being open.
Councilor Gamache, can we get that as a motion?
A motion to allow, before the meeting is open, allow Attorney Kelty to address the council.
Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilors Turco.
I had my hand up for a moment to comment before that.
My apologies. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. Are we opening the hearing?
If
or
I
are we
may,
not opening the hearing?
I don't want to open the hearing yet and allow the attorney to address he's going to ask for a continuance. And whether we want to open up the meeting or not is beyond, whatever the council may want to do, but he's going to be asking for a continuance based on certain circumstances, and I'd like him to address the council.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, I think maybe what may have been left out of the motion is that we're trying to suspend the rules here to allow Attorney Kelty to speak. Is that correct? Yes. So maybe that clarification helps.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Any other councilors? So the motion would be to suspend the rules to allow Attorney Kelty to address the council. On that motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Kelty.
Thank you. For the record, John Kelty, 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., appearing on behalf of 180 Newbury Street, LLC. I will be respectfully requesting a continuance until the meeting of April 30th. There have been some questions that have arisen about the use of the upstairs portion of this premises. There is a person who resides there and has for quite some time. We have presented a notice to quit, and I believe that it is the desire of several councilors to try to resolve the situation on the second floor before we move forward to consider the application on the first floor. So I have a physical letter which I would present, and I can read if it is safer for the councils. So is there not accepting a late ad? Or would you accept a late ad which would be my motion to continue, my request to continue.
If you don't mind, Councilor Kelty, if you just want to provide it verbally, we can move forward.
Sure. So I've addressed a letter to the City of Peabody City Council, to the clerk. I say I represent 180 Newbury Street LLC with respect to an application for a special permit to be heard this evening, March 23rd, 2023. Several inspections need to be arranged, Board of Health, Fire Department, etc., and a notice to quit must be presented to a party at the premises, which has been presented and will be formally served tomorrow morning. I'm saying kindly accept this letter as a request to continue deliberations on this matter to the meeting of April 13th, 2023.
All right, thank you, Attorney Kelty. We are not going to move forward with opening this evening.
That was the,
was
if
the
I may,
motion.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilor.
Yeah, that was the basic, because there's a lot of things and questions that had to be asked, and I suggested to Mr. Kelty that on behalf of his client, let's try to clean this up prior to him coming before us for a special permit, and therefore I requested that we not open the public hearing and that we allow him the ability to reschedule this till the last meeting in April, so that all of these, is it the last weekend in April? I mean, the 13th. Oh, you think you're going to be able to get it done by then? Okay, the 13th of April, so moved.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache, and thank you, councilors, for bearing with me. I know this one is a little atypical, but the motion as made by Councilor Gamache is to continue item 4F, this special permit request, until April 13th. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Daigle, O'Neill,
Yes.
Peach,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, councilors. Now moving on to item 4G, special permit for J.G. Backlund Realty Trust at 190 Rear Newbury Street. The clerk will now read the notice. Councilor Gamache.
On this matter, we do not have all the proper approvals in order. The planning board voted to allow for this to move forward, but the city clerk was not notified by the planning board that they had moved an approval of this permit, and therefore we do not have the complete information needed to move forward with this. We were waiting for conservation. We did get that. Planning board was the next board. They did vote approval, but after the packet was sent out, it was submitted from the planning board to the city clerk, but was not added to our agenda. So therefore, we do not have the vote of the planning board before us, which basically brings us to another continuance of this matter. So we haven't opened the public hearing, and primarily because we've been waiting for information, and now we're going to be waiting, even though the clerk has been given the vote from the planning board, we do not have it tonight. And as councilors have been pretty adamant about approving late communications, I would move that we ask the petition to continue as well.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the remarks from Councilor Gamache. Any further discussion? So the motion from Councilor Gamache.
To continue to the 13th of April.
Councilors, you've heard the motion from Councilor Gamache. On the motion, Councilor McGinn.
Yeah, I just would like to hear from the representative of the petitioner that they're in agreement with this, that they consent to this.
Thank you, Councilor
I
McGinn.
am, and I do a consent, and I actually have a letter requesting the same, and it cites the issues that were raised by Councilor Gamache, and we were given a memo of approval, and we're a must-need supply by April 30th. I'm sorry, by March 30th, next week. We need to submit that plan that they've asked for through the Department of Public Services, so that all of the items that were pre-construction would be addressed in that plan. And I checked with the engineer today. They will be able to have it in place for March 30th, which will allow us to be at the planning board to say, here's our plan in compliance with your approval. So this letter is, I would file it, a request to ask to continue until April 13th. The planning board will meet April 7th.
Thank you, Attorney Kelty.
Still the floor.
Councilor McGinn, you still have the floor.
Yeah, I don't want to screw us up procedurally here, because I think the motion was to continue, but I threw you to Councilor Gamache if somebody might object to it, but I think for the purpose of avoiding any constructive approval or anything, I would abdicate accepting the late communication.
There's a motion already on the floor. So,
But you're right, my request was to
I withdraw the motion.
to perhaps withdraw and maybe amend
I would
it.
withdraw the motion and allow for Councilor Kelty to read that letter so it's not considered a late communication, because he's requesting upon his right to continue, as he has done so for 190 Newbury Street all along for the last 7 months.
Yep, thank you, Councilor Gamache. So the request has been taken back. So we're now, can you please read the letter? Yes. Thank you.
Be happy to. This letter is dated today to the City Council of the City of Peabody. Attention Clerk Danforth, regarding a special permit request for continuance. I represent JG Backland Realty Trust with respect to an application for a special permit to be heard on March 23rd, 2023. Kindly accept this letter as a request to continue deliberations on this matter to the meeting of April 13th, 2023. The Planning Board and Conservation Commission have both provided approvals of this project. This hopefully will be the last continuance and will provide the applicant's engineer to make time to make minor revisions to the plan and submit to the Planning Board to achieve compliance with the approval of that board. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Thank you, Attorney Kelty. Councilor Gamache.
And prior to me making a motion, I would ask that, because this has been before us for so long, if there are pertinent information or questions that the council may ask for, whether there's more outstanding permits or other things that have to be addressed prior to that meeting, please give them to me so I can give them to the petitioner to make sure that all those questions are answered, so that we get the answers and we don't have to continue it again. It's just so that we can get this finally put to rest. And with that, I'll make the motion to allow the petitioner to continue this meeting at his request to April 13th. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion from Councilor Gamache. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Daigle. Yes. O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Welton. Yes. Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, thanks.
Itaki.
Mr. Demakis, if you could join us at the podium on behalf of the entertainment license request for Itaki Restaurant Bistro. The clerk will now read the notice. Clerk has already read the notice, so we're going to go right to you.
Okay. I'm sorry I wasn't here in person. Mr. Dimag is on his way, but they told us that I could do it through the Zoom meeting, so I'm here now.
Yep, that you can, we don't need your attorney if you'd like to just tell us what you'd like to do and provide your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Pantelis Papadimitriou. I'm the general manager of Ithaki Restaurant. I live in Haverhill, Mass, 164 Morgan Drive.
Great, thank you. And what would you like to do with the entertainment license for Ithaki too?
So we would like to extend it to have like 5 to 6 live entertainment a year. Like that was the whole purpose of the application. We do have regular music in the restaurant and 2 TVs playing. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in favor who'd like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone on Zoom who'd like to speak in favor? Does Mr. DeMarcus want to speak in favor? Is he? Okay. So anyone who want to speak in opposition? Seeing none, anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. Councilor Gamache.
Yes, if there are no questions from the council, I move to close the public hearing.
Councilors, you've heard the motion to close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
First of all, I want to thank the petitioner for coming down on short notice. I appreciate that. At this time, I move approval on the application for the Ithaki Restaurant and Bistro Incorporated, 1A Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass., requesting an entertainment license for the use of non-live entertainment, specifically television and digital entertainment, internet music, and live entertainment at said 1A Newbury Street, Peabody, Mass. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Yes. Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Okay, now moving on to reports of committees. We've already received the ICD committee report from Councilor Gould, so we're now moving on to Finance Committee from Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee of the Peabody City Council met earlier this evening. Present for the committee were Councilors Gamache, Gould, Manning, Martin, Turco, and myself as chair. Also present were all other councilors, with the exception of Councilor Melville, who's unable to be with us tonight. There were several items on the agenda. First item on the agenda was the statement of interest for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School that was presented to the committee by His Honor the Mayor. Also present was School Committee Person Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn. It was explained that the accelerated repair proposals are on hold by the MSBA, so that this would be the only SOI put forward this year because it's part of the core program, which is going to be continued offered by the MSBA. As far as the high school goes, this was a little unclear as to whether this is the 5th or 6th time we've put forward an SOA for the high school, but suffice to say, it's been a number of years now that we've both the school committee and the city council have advanced this request. This is the second year where a priority 3 issue has been raised on the SOI, which it means that there is an accreditation issue relative to the lack of an upgraded facility or a new facility. The accreditation risk, according to School Committee Person Beverly Ann Griffin Dunn, was all related to facilities issues. It was not related to curriculum and so forth. And there is a warning status there. So with that explanation, there was a motion made by Councilor Gamache as follows. Resolved that having convened in an open meeting on March 23rd, 2023, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the Peabody City Council of the City of Peabody, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority statement of interest form dated on or before April 14th, 2023, for the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School located at 485 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., which describes and explains the following deficiencies and priority categories for which the application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The MSB priority categories are MSBA priority number 3, prevention of loss of accreditation, the NEASC, New England Association of Schools and Colleges Commission on Public Schools voted to place PVMHS on warning status for the standards and instruction and community resources for learning. The NEASC accreditation report of March 2020 cited the lack of facilities sufficient to fully implement the curriculum, including co-curricular programs and other learning opportunities programs and services, inadequate HVAC and electrical systems, insufficient bathrooms, broken and non-functional lighting, classroom hallways and parking lots, unsafe water quality, limited handicap access, inadequate security, including insufficient passage locking systems, leaking roofs, and out-of-date classrooms for studios and labs. MSBA priority number 7, replacement and renovation or addition to an obsolete building in order to provide full range of programs consistent with the state approved local requirements. The educational deficits of the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School are articulated in the Peabody Veterans Memorial High School SOI and include the need for much needed upgrades to classrooms, science areas, career vocational, technical, educational, classroom, meeting rooms, counseling offices, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems, energy efficiencies, building envelope, disability access, and security considerations. And the Peabody City Council hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the award or grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Mr. President, that motion passed the Finance Committee unanimously. I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Yes. Daigle. Yes. O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, Councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second item on the agenda was a motion that was made by Councilor Turco to refer to Finance Committee discussion regarding the creation of a high school stabilization fund to use towards the construction of a new high school, and invite Mayor Betancourt and Finance Director Gingras to attend. Both His Honor the Mayor and Mr. Gingras were in attendance as requested by the motion. Councilor Turco laid out the rationale for the request of the stabilization fund. There were some comments made regarding what has happened with this in other communities versus how it might play out here in the city of Peabody. And it was a distinction drawn by Councilor Turco as to the need to have a vote to establish the fund, and perhaps a vote at a later date in terms of how to fund the stabilization fund for this specific purpose. As it relates to the funding mechanism, the suggestion by Mr. Gingras was to use certified free cash at the end of the calendar year in the out years. However, in the interest of trying to do something sooner rather than later, there was a commitment made by on the part of the mayor and the finance director to look at our current certified free cash total before June 30th and to potentially move some funds in the direction of the stabilization fund if it makes sense. Rationale for that was that we've had a relatively light year for snow and ice, so there may be an opportunity to take some money that we might otherwise be required to encumber for those purposes. There were comments made by other councilors, generally supportive of Councilor Turco's idea, and some comments made relative to how this would be viewed by the MSBA and by bond rating agencies such as Moody's, and it was believed that generally the consensus was that it would be viewed positively by both entities. There was also a comment made by Councilor Peach, or I should say an inquiry from Councilor Peach about how the segregated money would earn interest, or if there's a potential to receive higher returns, and that was answered by Mr. Gingras to the affirmative that the sequestered money like this does have the opportunity to potentially earn at higher rates than other monies in the general pool. With that, there was a motion made by Councilor Turco as follows: motion to create a stabilization fund for the construction of a new Peabody High School and any other new school within the city. Mr. President, that vote passed the committee unanimously. I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved. On the motion, just a note to the clerk, the guidance from the Division of Local Services indicates that for this to be successful, we need a 2/3 vote threshold. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion from Councilor McGinn. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, Councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next item on the agenda was transfer of fund police salaries in an amount of $185,400 and police overtime in an amount of $1,017,200. This was presented to the committee by Mr. Gingras and the mayor, and Chief Griffin was also there to provide comment and respond to questions. There was some concerns raised by Councilor Gamache as to the magnitude of the transfer request and the viability of handling it this way on an ongoing basis. Those were addressed by the mayor and the chief. There were some similar issues raised by Councilor Manning Martin. And I guess the general consensus of the group seemed to be that we hope we're not in the same place in future years with respect to these expenses. The mayor did indicate that he believed these types of expenses like fire overtime, special education, snow and ice, there's wide variability on these and they're hard to nail down. However, he did step through a number of activities that are taking place with respect to the reserves and so forth that should put us in a better place with respect to overtime expenses going forward. Prior to acting on the particular item on the agenda, there was a motion made by Councilor Manning Martin. There was a request to request from the mayor a summary of uses of opera funds thus far and a list of proposals for remaining opera funds. So I now bring that motion to for consideration of the full council, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. When the there was at the end of the discussion on this matter, there was a motion by Councilor Gould as follows. Move to approve the transfer request opera funds account number 250-059-003481222022 in an amount of $1,202,600 to police salaries account number 10002100511 in an amount of $185,400, and police overtime, account number 1000210051130 in an amount of $1,017,200 for a total of $1,202,600. Mr. President, that motion passed the committee unanimously. I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Council McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Daigle. O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rossignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, Councilors. Council McGinn.
Next item on the agenda was transfer funds, Central Fire Station Building Assessment, amount of $29,710, and sewer pump station rehab, $90,500. This was presented to us by His Honor the Mayor, as well as Mr. Gingras. Specifically mentioned that the $29,710 would be used for an assessment of the Engine 1 Central Firehouse, that there are historic renovation issues unique to that building, and that those would be taken into consideration by the third party engaged to perform this assessment. There was also a question raised about the pump station and location. Once that was clarified, it seemed there was support from the committee, and the following motion was made by Councilor Gould. Move to approve transfer request, account number 270-000-330009, revenue reserve for appropriation amount of $29,710 to account number 300-02200-582412-2023-000002201, Central Fire Station Building Assessment, an amount of $29,710, and move to approve transfer from account number 460-000031101, water and sewer retained earnings, an amount of $90,500 to account number 460-04400584712-2023-000004402, sewer pump station rehab, an amount of $90,500. Mr. President, that motion from Councilor Gould passed the committee unanimously, and I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Council McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Yes. Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rossignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, Councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item on the agenda was transfer of funds, capital equipment, farm truck, in the amount of $65,000. It was presented to us by the Director of Finance, Mr. Gingras. Explained that there was a new truck being requested for Tilly's Farm, and that the money would be taken from the Tilly's Farm revolving fund. There was a motion by Councilor Gould as follows. Move to approve transfer request, Tilly's Farm revolving account number 260-000-0035615, an amount of $65,000 to capital equipment farm truck, account number 300-000-00585552023-000006640, an amount of $65,000. Mr. President, one of the committee members stepped out of the room for that vote, but that vote was supported by a 4-0 vote. Mr. President, I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Council McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Yes. Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rossignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item on the agenda, transfer of funds, traffic signal upgrade, King Street, an amount of $105,000. This was presented to the committee by His Honor the Mayor. It was explained that there was an evaluation done by WorldTech. A number of options were considered, and it was thought that the third option that is would cost just under $105,000 would be the preferred alternative. There will be ultimately a reimbursement of $60,000 from the Hemisphere Development, that's the 40B on King Street at a later date, but the feeling on the part of the administration that we should not wait to do this upgrade to this important intersection. There were comments by other councilors, several of them thanking Councilor Daigle for her work on this to get this prioritized. And with that, there was a motion made by Councilor Gould as follows: move to approve transfer count number 1000000035901, unreserved fund balance free cash in amount of $105,000 to account number 30000000581 0520230000004210, traffic signal upgrade King Street, an amount of $105,000. Mr. President, that vote passed the committee unanimously, and I'll bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, I just want to thank Public Services and the mayor for expediting this project and making it a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Daigle. On the motion, any other councilors? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco. Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next item on the agenda was transfer funds utility software upgrade, an amount of $200,000. This was brought to us by Director of Finance, Mr. Gingras. He explained the need for the software upgrade and explained that there would be a future request coming for smart meters across the city, but that this was a necessary first step in that journey. There was a motion made by Councilor Gould as follows: move to approve transfer requests from account number 4600000031101, water and sewer retained earnings, amount of $200,000, to account number 460004420583006, utility software upgrade, an amount of $200,000. Mr. President, that motion passed the committee unanimously. I now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rozignol. Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last item on the agenda was a transfer request of funds, cable fund expense, an amount of $206,020.31. This was brought to us by Director of Finance, Mr. Gingras. This is a routine matter that we deal with funds coming in from the city's cable providers. This one happens to be from Comcast, and these funds ultimately pay the bills at Peabody Access TV in large part. There was a motion made by Councilor Gould as follows: move to approve transfer requests, receipts reserve cable fund, account number 2700000333017, an amount of $206,020.31 to cable fund expense. Account number 2700000533007, an amount of $206,020.31. Mr. President, that motion passed the committee unanimously, and now bring it for consideration of the full council. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould. Rozignol.
Yes.
Gamache. McGinn.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Thank you, councilors. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. That completes the report of committee.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilor Turco, did you have something?
Yeah, I may have missed it, Pete, with all the, Council McGinn, with all the numbers, but did we put Council Manning Martin's motion about the ARPA funding? We did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Now moving on to motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Turco.
No motions.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, I move to receive item 8B and item 8C. So moved.
Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Thank you, Councilor Daigle. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. No motions this evening, but I do want to take a moment and congratulate the Burke School girls and the West Memorial boys basketball teams. Both of those schools won their respective championship elementary basketball champions. So if anyone's looking, the trophies will be located in Ward 6 for the next 12 months. Thank you.
No comment. Any other comments on that? Okay, seeing none. Moving on. Councilor Peach. Thank you, Councilor O'Neill. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive and approve item 9B, all papers being in order.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to have DPS install no parking here to corner signs on Fulton Street at both intersections of Tremont and Walnut Street. I did make this motion last year, but the signs have not gone up, so thank you. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Peach.
No further motions, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to congratulate the Bishop Fenwick girls basketball team for making it to the state finals and coming very, very close to beating a powerhouse team of St. Mary's, which ended up being victorious. But they had a great season, and I enjoyed following the games.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Anything else this evening, Councilor Manning Martin? All right, thank you. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one. There was a motion made by Councilor O'Neill, P129-23. We sent it to Industrial Community Development, but it really should have gone to Legal Affairs. So if we could please have that go to Legal Affairs, Clerk Danforth. Thank you. No further motions, Mr. Chairman.
We'll take that as a motion, Councilor Gould. So all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor Rozignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under the suspension of the rules, motion to receive and approve all papers being in order. Item 9C, so moved.
Thank you, Councilor Rozignol. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Rozignol.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, motion to receive and approve all papers being in order. Taxi limo driver's license for John Denka and Dennis Frey, so moved.
Thank you, Councilor Rozignol. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Rozignol.
No further motions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Rozignol. Councilor Gamache.
Yes, Mr. President, on suspension of rules, notice to receive 7A as informational, MassDOT Chapter 90 program, so move.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gamache.
Under suspension of rules, move to receive 8A, Conservation Commission notice of permit application, Browns Pond, so move.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gamache.
Move to receive a communication from Anita and Richard Swanton on the trash receptacle proposal. If we're still going to have a public hearing on this, we place that in the all right. So moved.
Councilor Gamache's point of information,
Yep.
we've already received that.
Did we receive C? Okay, D?
Yes. No.
Okay. Thomas St. Pierre, Acting Building Commissioner, transfer special permit 29/2007, Sean Phillips and Allison C. Russell, 468 Lowell Street, move to receive under suspension of the rules.
You can, the motion could be receive and approve.
Okay,
Council
yeah,
Gamache.
it's not a special permit. Thank you. Motion to receive and approve.
Thank you, Council Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Council Gamache.
Yes, 8E, under suspension of the rules, Class 2 motor vehicle licenses, Mike's Auto Sales, 100 Bernie Street, Units 1A1 and A2, North Shore Auto Sales, 218B Newbury Street, and Spofford Automotive, 55 Rear Walnut Street. These communications have been sent out twice, and they have not reapplied or any correspondence whatsoever.
Correct. I have not received from any of them any
Is the
information at
motion
all.
to revoke, or would that be the proper motion to make, is to revoke the licenses? So moved. For non-compliance of remittal.
Thank you, Council Gamache. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, we're going to do a roll call on this one to revoke.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Daigle, O'Neill,
Yes.
Peach,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould, Rozignol,
Yes.
Gamache,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Council Gamache.
Under 9A, presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrances. Under suspension of the rules, entertainment license is a new application, the Bell Inn, 2 Washington Street, set up a hearing. So moved.
Thank you, Council Gamache. Councilors, on the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Council Gamache. Thank you, Council Gamache. Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may have missed this, and Councilor Gould, through you, Mr. President, to Councilor Gould, in your report of committee, I know we received the 8F in committee. I'm not sure if it was received in your report.
And we'd like to take it to the whole body.
Right. So move to, Mr. President, move to receive item 8F and refer to Industrial Committee Development. So move.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
I think that's it on, yeah. I'd like to make, it's going to be a co-motion, I think, with Councilor Gamache. Ties into the request to get all the information we need in advance of the 190R Newbury Street hearing when that ultimately happens. The request was to get information to you. I do think we need a piece of information from the city solicitor because there is a question as to, because it's a housing thing, whether or not the vote threshold is a simple majority or a supermajority. When Councilor Daigle will remember when we did 68 Prospect Street, we had a communication from the city solicitor clarifying that, so there was no confusion the night of the hearing as to what the vote threshold is. So I would move to request an opinion from the city, co-motion with Councilor Gamache to request an opinion from the city solicitor as to the vote threshold for the 190R Newbury Street hearing. And on the motion, just to, as a point of reference to the city solicitor, he can refer back to his March 24th, 2022 memo to the council regarding 68 Prospect Street. It's essentially the same request. That was submitted to the council as late communication 6. Thank you, Mr. President. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Councilors, you've heard the motion. On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Just one from me quickly this evening, as we're hopefully, with the snow behind us, we're going to have street sweeping occurring shortly, and I'd like to make a motion that the mayor's office, in coordination with the Department of Public Service, alert neighbors of street sweeping via robocalls in the upcoming season. So moved. Seeing any discussion? No. All right, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.